What's good, my kings and queens? Another great day here. We are here, Stand Up Podcast. Welcome back. I'm your host, Danny Royce, bringing you tips, knowledge of Black health and wealth in the Black community, uplifting the Black community for the culture, by the culture. And I'm joined here by my co-host. What's good?
Yo, Michael Houston. Shout out to New York always. What's up, y'all?
Hey, you see I come in here repping.
Oh, yeah, you already
Chi-town
know.
where it's at. You already know. What's good? And we are here with the one and only. He's a comedian. You gonna bust it out for us later?
Maybe. If your price is right.
Well, so everybody, welcome Ian KC in the house. What's good?
Thank you for
Hang
having
10.
me.
Love
Man.
it. What's going on? How are you today?
Man, I'll be real with you. I'm tired. I'm beat up. I'm beat up.
You beat up?
Yeah, from Thursday on until I've really, probably this moment right now, I've been going nonstop for the last couple of days. So it's nice to just sit down and do something that just requires me to talk.
Hey, that's what's up.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for taking time to come chill with us.
Absolutely.
We
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
We definitely appreciate it.
Hey, so we got to get into this, man,
Yeah.
because you're from Hawaii,
Yes.
Yeah.
or how they supposed to be in Hawaii, right?
Nah, close.
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Gotta get that
Got
I
it.
That'd be
separate.
correct.
How? Wait, which part of Hawaii?
Which
So I'm from this island called Oahu.
Okay.
It's the main island where everything
Yeah.
goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that growing? Because I went to Hawaii 3 years ago, and I want to live there now. Like, it changed my life. It changed my life about everything. And going into the Black experience, I remember my friends and I, we just got an Airbnb. We didn't stay at a resort because, like, we want to stay amongst people. Cool. And there was a Black family next door, and I'm staring at them. I'm like, Black people in Hawaii. I'm looking at it, and I went up to them. I said, "Hey, how you doing? My friend and I are staying here." I said, my ignorant self, I was like, "Y'all part of the military?" That was my first story. I was like, "Y'all part of the military?" He said, "No, we live here." I said, "Y'all just moved here?" "Yeah, we moved there like a long time ago." And I said, "What?" So how was it growing up there? Like, man.
I get that question a lot, and I completely get it because it's an island, but it's not the typical Black island.
Right.
You know, not the Caribbean ones. This one's in the middle Pacific Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. I wouldn't trade it for any other experience in the whole world. It definitely shaped me into the man that I am, and gave me the great ability to swim quite well in hard waters, along with dealing with a whole lot of BS at that too. It was tough growing up as a kid because I quickly found out that racism didn't apply just to Black people, but to everybody. So Hawaii has this amazing attribute of being just about equally racist to everybody. So everyone gets these jokes, aside from one group, and that would be white people. They get the jokes 5 times harder than anyone else. If you want to feel like a minority, go to Hawaii, and you'll soon find out why we in the streets marching. You'll find out real quick. So it was a hell of an experience, and I learned how to use chopsticks before a fork. So
I love chopsticks.
Yeah, chopsticks was. I came up here and people would be stabbing themselves with them damn things.
Like, yeah, just like, or just falling down, twisted up. Got carpal tunnel and stuff. So as far as like the family, did your family move there? Were they based there for a long time? Do generations? What's happening?
So as Mike said, military, right? That seems to be the normal thing, and it's a combination of both. So initially, what happened was my mom was married and lived in Virginia at the time. She had just gotten divorced, and she had nowhere to go. So she ended up moving in with her little sister, whose family was stationed in Hawaii. Her I guess brother-in-law, my uncle, was in the Navy. So she ends up moving in there with them. And then my father, on the other hand, just graduated from college, really didn't know what he was doing with his life. He had a degree in geology from MIT. So he's real smart. So he's like, let me go to Hawaii and study rock. So he moves to Hawaii, and those two get put on a blind date. And a couple months and some change later,
Here we go.
Man.
Here we are.
Conception.
Yep. Price of paradise, baby. 18 years of child support.
Rapping, that's how it happened. All right, I love it.
Yeah.
Love to see. Have you been to all the islands in Hawaii? And if you have, which one's your favorite?
You know what? No, I haven't. I've only been to 3
Mm-hmm.
of the islands. I get that question. I'm like, oh, so, you go everywhere. I'm like, if you're from New York, have you been to every square inch of New York?
Right, exactly.
Sure haven't.
No.
Some people.
I still haven't gone to the Statue of Liberty yet,
All
ever,
right.
and I'm from there.
Yeah.
There you go. So, yeah, I've been to 3 islands.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, the one that I'm from, Oahu. I've been to Big Island, which is called technically Hawaii. And
Right.
the state's also called
It's so
Hawaii.
weird.
But we call it Big Island back
Yeah.
at home. And so, I've been there, and I've also been to Maui.
Okay.
Now, out of all of those, I would say if you want to live, Oahu, obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
It's got the most infrastructure.
Right.
But if you're just looking to vacation and take it easy, I probably would say Maui because it's a combination of both. It's that leisure and a little bit of the city life.
Right.
'Cause you go to Big Island, that's the country.
Yeah.
Like that's where it's cool out there, but don't be going places alone at night because you're gonna end up being thrown into a volcano and sacrificed.
Yeah.
So you gotta be careful out there.
Damn.
Wow. Yeah, the Big Island, that's the one I haven't been to. I had the privilege of going to Kauai, which was beautiful, like absolutely phenomenal. I guess one of those islands that are kind of just quiet.
Yeah. It's the
like
wettest
that.
spot in the world. Did you know that?
What's that?
It's the wettest spot.
Wettest spot in the world?
I mean, aside from obviously the ocean,
Right.
But, you know.
I didn't, but I
Yeah.
could tell when I was
Yeah.
there, but it was beautiful. So I want to transition to with your stand-up.
Sure.
So how did you get into stand-up? And how did your first show go?
Okay, so I would tell you the inception of my stand-up career probably started in 7th grade. It was 7th grade, and I was only black kid in a school that was predominantly Asian, and so to deal with all the teasing and the being made fun of and ostracization, I decided to just make myself funny, make myself likable, so I tell jokes. And this girl, I remember her name to this day, Casey Hoggy. She told me in the middle of class, she said, "Ian, shut up. You're not funny." And I internalized that probably more than I should have. I said, I'm gonna move to LA and I'm gonna show you funny.
Hey,
I was
come
like,
on.
You're gonna find out. So that was my first start. And then eventually I did my very first stand-up set in college at a school-wide talent show. It was almost like a bachelor type thing. I was one of the head honchos on campus, so they had me kind of do this call. It was called Mr. VU. So I went to Vanguard University. And so I did that, and I just fell in love with stand-up. And then I wasn't sure how to kind of get into the game. And this is where it takes a little bit of a dark turn. I was dating this girl at the time, and she talked me into, doing some party drugs. And I was like, all right, cool. So I started doing that for a little bit. And one night, I overdosed, and I woke up 17 hours later, barely could remember where I am, my name, couldn't make sense of up and down. And I woke up and I started developing this rash. I got the shingles.
Oh.
Yeah, and I went to the hospital. I said, why do I have the shingles? They said, well, it would appear that your body got so stressed out from something that happened. I didn't tell them.
Right.
Overdose.
Almost
on party drugs.
Yeah, OD on shit.
Exactly.
Damn.
And so the shingles hit me hard, and then I got diagnosed with depression and severe anxiety, started having panic attacks left and right. And I had all these thoughts in my head, and I couldn't get them out. It was like I literally couldn't shut my thoughts up. And the only moment of peace I would get was when I was asleep. So I figured, well, life can either happen to you or it can happen for you. And so
Amen.
I had all these thoughts in my head. I said, well, how do I take these thoughts and stop them from being weapons and hurting me? And how do I take that into a positive? So I went to my first open mic at the Irvine Improv in Orange County. And Friendly Frank was hosting. I don't know where that cat's at now, but he's funny. And I did my first set. And that night, I bombed bad. But I had one joke that I got off, and I got some chuckles, and that was enough for me. And I knew from that moment, moving forward, I was like, I got to do this. and the thoughts stopped coming once I started putting the pen to paper, and I figured there's no looking back. So I wrote in my notes and said, "Dear Ian, in the future, you found out what you want to do with your life, so let's get it."
Let's get it.
Yeah,
I love that.
Beautiful.
I love that.
You how is the stand-up scene, I guess, in Hawaii versus LA?
Man, it is night and day. So predominantly here, you have a lot of black comics, but you have comics of all different races.
Right.
It is a mixing pot, but it's a different type of mixing pot because that's also what Hawaii is.
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii has its own very unique sense of humor. It's very slapstick, and also very dark at times. And the way they talk is we have a whole different vernacular, like a whole slang. Yeah. And so a lot of the comics there often talk about things that they relate to, like family and dealing with like different races, just like you would up here. So for instance, like here, right, in LA, you say, yeah, I was dealing with some niggas the other day, right, as a black comic. But in Hawaii, you would say, yeah, I was dealing with some Portuguese. And a Portuguese is Portuguese person. It's right. So and in Hawaii we have like Portuguese jokes. So it's like, and they're kind of like dumb blonde jokes like you would up here. Right. So it'd be like, first, like, how does a Portuguese kill a fish? He drowns it. Something stupid like that. So
I can't with you.
So like the I guess like
wait, let me see.
The biggest difference was of doing comedy was it is such a small pool in Hawaii. Like truly, all the comics know each other, and if you don't talk the way the people do, they won't get it. Unless you're a big name, you got to come there, right? Because let's say you're Joe Coy, you can go out there and kill it, right? Because he's Filipino. Right. So the culture's already there. He's also big enough. If you're, let's say, a Bill Burr, you could go out there because you already have the notoriety. But let's say you're like maybe not quite a bit of a comic. So let's say like, I'd say that now.
Amy
He'll
Schumer.
do fine out there. Yeah, exactly.
What did you say?
Amy Schumer.
Oh.
if Amy Schumer went out there,
all right,
ain't nobody gonna want to listen to some white woman,
not at all. I mean, barely want to hear. No.
Hey, keep this in mind, right? People mad up here about all the shit white people have done to them in Hawaii. That was only 70 years ago.
Yeah.
So like they remember. They remember when Hawaii was not a state.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. Most definitely. So what do you have any no-goes as a comedian? Because some comedians do, some people don't.
What's your philosophy on that?
Man, I'll keep it a buck. I like to touch upon everything, unfortunately, which gets me into like some trouble. For me, it's like this, right? Comedy is, in its essence, is tragedy. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know this. So for instance, there's this, do you know Dante's Inferno? Ever heard that story, right? So Dante's Inferno has a second name to it. A lot of people know, but it's called the Divine Comedy. And you think about it, right? There ain't nothing really funny about a crusader going to hell and having to go through all the different levels and gates of hell.
Right.
But it's called Divine Comedy because what comedy does is it takes tragedy and turns it up on its head and makes it palatable.
Right.
And so I was going somewhere with that. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
What's your philosophy for the no-goes?
So my philosophy for the no-goes is if you're gonna go for it, if you're really gonna go for it, you better make damn sure it's funny and you're knowledgeable. Right? So you gotta also understand the history of the references or the jokes or the topics that you're making. Because if you don't at least have the understanding, right, then you better make it funny. And the thing is, most comics, we're trying out new material, and if it's controversial, not making it funny, now you're just controversial. Right. So sure, you get some light on you, but it could be bad light, and you may, you don't have the Kardashians' PR team. Right. So, that might be all she wrote for you. Yeah. It gets you the heck up out of here. Right. So as far as topics that I don't personally touch, I would say I will touch on pretty much every topic. I just make sure that whatever side of the topic I play, I give its credence and I recognize the opposition. Right. Because that's what you have to do. So, because in my honest opinion, it should all be talked about. Right. Because if we can't talk about a taboo subject in the guise of comedy, then we'll never be able to talk about it ever.
Right.
Because comedy is the most digestible way to get it.
Right.
So that's my philosophy, honestly.
That's a great point, because as I'm starting to do stand up, I find myself I have to recognize the awkwardness of talking about something controversial within myself first, and then once I get clear on what I'm trying to convey, then it's easier to speak about, especially stuff about your own personal life that other people don't really know about or anything. And with tragedy, I describe comedians, they are the shadow workers of the world, meaning that they take what's the darkness of the world and they bring it to light in a palatable, funny way.
Exactly.
And it makes people think about it, but it's still dark stuff.
Right.
It's still very, very dark. But because of the art form of comedy, it allows us to think about it. So one person I can think of, Dave Chappelle, in terms of his commentary about the dark things in our society. So who would you say inspired you or inspires you? Like, what comedian?
Well, I mean, I tell you what, I'm not gonna sound like too much of a cliche, but I want to say Dave Chappelle is the current leader of that school of thought. I think before him, you would look at somebody like George Carlin, right? That was kind of his thing.
Yeah.
I think if you sit back long enough and you let a comedian go through their cycle of being a comic, you don't cancel them in time, or don't overdose on drugs, or they don't give up. Eventually, 9 out of 10 times, you'll see a comic transition into a philosopher. And that is typically what I've always seen happen. And so currently, or I should say that the guy that really got me going, this was a different time, and I pray to God more than anything, I wish you release a special one day again, because he would absolutely murder, is Eddie Murphy.
Oh my God.
Eddie Murphy was that comic that came out the gate, and this nigga touched on everything. Now, granted, it was the 80s, so it was a little different.
Canceled now.
Oh my God. If you try to watch Raw or Delirious now, you want to rip your ears off. You're like, I'm not supposed to be listening to that. But man, that guy he found a way to talk about these things. And like for instance, like I ain't gonna say the word, but Mr. T, the whole Mr. T joke about what Mr. T was doing.
Oh my God,
you doing it well, boy. You know what I mean? Like that right there is hilarious. Because it's the juxtaposition. You're taking the most testosterone-filled man at the time, and you put him in the opposite position. And because of that, what was Eddie Murphy able to do? He was able to talk about gay people on a national level, and in a way that gay people could be laughing about, could chuckle about. Exactly. I say this: if you want to be in the news, if you want to have your story told, at some point you have to be willing to be the butt of the joke, right? Because the sword cuts both ways with celebrity and fame. Like at the same time, like I don't want nobody talking about my body and body shaming me. It was like, but at the same time, you getting paid millions of dollars to entertain and tell people jokes. At the end of the day, I hate to say it, but your career isn't necessary to a society to propel it forward, right? It's not as much as a doctor.
Right.
So I think if you can make a livable wage, a true livable wage, and live better than most, right? Then I think you can take being made fun of every now and again too.
Yeah. Right.
Because you set yourself in these ivory castles. Eventually, they're gonna come tumbling down, as they always do. Nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
So
that's what. And the last thing, that's what I say about New Yorkers. It's like we cut ass out there, and it's vicious at times. And I had to moving out here in Cali. It's different, But growing up in that school system and with teachers, even the teachers will cut ass and just joke, and you begin to start developing thick skin. And I always say, I make a joke of it. I say like, you never see school shooters in New York because everybody have thick skin out there. When you're like joking, it's like people, oh yeah, whatever, yeah. But it's like they may fight, but even then, it's like whatever. You just walk away because it's a way of life that just talking shit. Yeah, honestly,
I do believe that it's a line between the talking shit and then like joking around, because sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, it's funny, and deep down inside they're screaming. You know what I mean? Because it's like people may be used to it, but what intention do you have behind it?
Right.
That's the big thing. Are you set to hurt people, or are you just set to make people laugh? But as we talked on before, like the pain. Some of the greatest comedians, came from hurt, and tragedy. Like, and we've seen some take their lives, unfortunately. But I think what's very healthy, especially as an artist, to make sure you have that outlet, whatever it may be, meditation, spirituality, something that can ground you. Because as you said, you put yourself in the spotlight, you're going to be talked about. You're going to be made fun of. People are going to say things about you. I mean, it's just the way it is. You're in the public view. But how do you deal with that? And something that defines you as a person, how you deal with that. So, but I do want to talk about, like, do you have any upcoming projects or anything like that are you having any shows coming up anywhere that we can?
Yeah. So right now, as far as shows are concerned, I don't got jack. But I should say I don't got jack yet. No, but I will say I am working on a project right now with a fellow comedian by the name of Tron Jones. He's an Orange County comedian. He comes up to LA quite frequently. He's actually, funny enough, he's the first guy that put me on stage to have like a first show where I got paid and coincidentally interviewed for a podcast following.
Hey. Wow.
And so I had known him since I started, and we recently reconnected, and he's been somewhat of a mentor to me. And currently we're actually working on a documentary. Now, I can't go too much into detail about it for copyright reasons, because I don't know who's going to be listening, trying to take my ideas and whatnot. But what I can tell you is that documentary will focus on Black culture. And more importantly, it will focus on the wide variety and shades of Black culture within America. And trying to kind of bring to light what has been hidden in the dark for so long, which is simply this: we are not monolithic.
Right.
So so that's what we're trying to do, and we hope to bring it out, and I'm very excited about it.
Well, I'm excited for you, bro. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And Michael, going back to what you said earlier, like ain't no Black folks shooting up no school. I'm sorry, don't like.
It's just like talking shit in our community. It's a part of the culture,
right?
And yes, we be screaming on the inside, and some people definitely like these motherfuckers out here. Like we be screaming.
They screaming.
Oh, gotcha. we be screaming on the inside. But wherever you're at geographically, they handle it differently.
Right.
And then New York, like we scream like I used to be brutalized, but then it taught me how to talk shit back. It taught me also there's a wittiness you begin to develop because you start someone say something, you immediately say something back. And I'm sure you probably found it like people like, oh, why are you so defensive? It's just your mind. Your comedian brain is always working. You always find the funny in something.
That part.
Trust me. Even usually in inopportune times.
Right.
Yeah, that's usually when you find the most funny. Like, it'll be funny right now. But this funeral probably ain't the best spot to pop.
Right. Probably don't want to talk about that right now. So going on to current discussion real quick as part of the show. Quickly, I just want to know what your thoughts were on, because I saw you did some posts on your Instagram and stuff about Kanye and about the new Dahmer show out.
Ask away, man.
What are your thoughts about Kanye's shirt and his stance on it?
So I think when it comes to Kanye West, my man is he's a man just like any of us. He is simply trying to figure it out. And I think because of his immense fame and wealth, his scale of figuring it out is on the public level, and he has the means to do it in ways that seem egregious to us, right? Because I'm sure there's things that we all have controversial opinions on,
right? But
it's just us, right? It's not like the whole world is looking at us 24/7, 365. So when Kanye West thinks of some weird stuff, this man has the audacity and the platform to put it out there. right? So given the whole White Lives Matter thing, now my personal opinion is, yeah, no shit, White Lives Matter.
No
You know,
shit,
it's
yeah.
the same thing with the whole All Lives Matter. No,
Right.
no shit, right? But if White Lives Matter so much, then why did that movement not come before Black Lives
Right.
Matter? It seemed to come right after
Right.
because it was an afterthought.
Mhm.
Because White Lives
A
were an
rebuttal.
afterthought
It's a
to
rebuttal.
you. It
Uh-huh.
was a rebuttal,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
That's what it is.
And, you know, seeing him go up there and promote it with Candace Owens, who is, you know, on that other
I
end of
want
the
Candace
spectrum.
on the show.
Yeah,
Right.
I want Candace on the show. A lot of people just want Candace in front of them so they can tell her how they really feel.
I
You know?
just want
Uh,
to dig into that mind of hers.
I'm sure it is something to behold.
Yes.
But the idea is like, you know, to me, it's just, as always, it's a cry for help, right?
Right.
It's, let me put out something that's going to be controversial, that's going to get attention, because that is how a celebrity in this country works. You know, especially these days, people want to be known for, you know, positive things, right? For the most part. But nowadays, that's the afterthought. It's, let me get in front of the camera first. Let me get these people's attention, and then I'll show them how good of a person I am and what my real thoughts are. I personally think, like the whole White Lives Matter thing, I'm just like, hey, if that's how you feel and you want to go do that on like Fashion Week or in Paris and whatnot and put it on the biggest platform, yo, that's your prerogative. But at the same time, you don't need to put down Black lives too, you know, because
Right.
at the same time, he's also saying like, well, you know, I'm doing this because of this. My guy, if you really about white lives so damn much, then why don't you move to a completely predominantly white country?
Right.
Why don't you go move
Go to
to
Norway.
Sweden,
Yeah,
Norway,
right,
right?
exactly.
You know, if you really about it, hey man, go ahead and be white. You know,
Right.
if that's what you want to be, identify as such. Your name is Kanye Omari West. I'm sorry, but that's a very black name. You know, this sounds like somebody who is disenfranchised with his own race, and maybe because he felt rejected by it at some point, because he's
Right.
always been counterculture, you know? He was wearing polos and whatnot when niggas was wearing chains and baggy
And
clothes,
Tims,
you know?
right.
He was partnering with all these different people.
Right.
Right.
So I think honestly, I think when it comes down to it is, you gotta let the man be for now, and it will sort itself out. There's this old Buddhist proverb that I truly believe, and it is, there's three things you cannot hide forever: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And Kanye is trying to find his truth right now. Had it
Yeah.
been us, ain't nobody care really.
Right, ain't nobody
but
care.
it's Kanye Omari West. So
Right.
everybody cares. So this man's gonna figure out his truth. We're gonna see his process, and it looks messy as a motherfucker
It
right
looked
now.
messy as hell. Like I'm watching a VH1, some wives, something on, I don't know. It's crazy, but we here for you, brother. Being from Hawaii, I wanted to talk about some of the first Africans in Hawaii. And which I don't know if a lot of people know this. So obviously the Caribbean, West Indies, Cape Verde, all that. But there was one particular American-born African named Anthony D. Allen. And so in 1810, he came to Hawaii as a whaler. And he became the steward of Kamehameha the first. And then within the decade, came to own 12 houses and a farm and running a boarding house, bowling alley, and hospital.
Damn.
The first two leaders of the Royal Hawaiian Band under Kamehameha III, Oliver and George Washington Hyatt, were also African Americans, former slaves who accompanied the American president missionaries to Hawaii. So they actually opened up a missionary in Hawaii, those two. And so when the Emancipation Proclamation happened, Hawaii was a big advocate of getting the millions of slaves that were freed onto, I think it was the big island of Oahu at that time, to work and to pay them wages and treat them as free men. But it never happened because Abraham Lincoln was unable to enforce the law in the South. Interesting, very interesting. So another thing I wanted to mention, because you were talking about like the melting pot that Hawaii is very interesting. So in 1910, there were only about 695 Africans in Hawaii, and 537 were multiracial. So the top, the monarchy, right? The race class system was established with whites at the top, browns in the middle. So that was also some Asian, Polynesians, blacks, obviously, Latinos, and then yellows at the bottom. And fortunately, Africans had darker skin, so they were categorized as brown people in Hawaii. So it's just interesting to see the different places around the world, because we everywhere, obviously.
For sure.
So it's interesting just to see how our ancestors were treated in different parts of the world and what caused that. So I wanted to share that. Last but not least, we got your questions, okay?
Gotcha.
So first and foremost, number one, stand up. Here we go. If there's no struggle, there is no progress. Who said it? Was it 1, Malcolm X, 2, Frederick Douglass, or 3, Abraham Lincoln?
I'm going to say that is a Malcolm X quote.
Frederick
Douglass.
Douglass.
You got 3 more. You still
I'm
in
sorry. I just like Malcolm, That nigga was
I do
angry.
like Malcolm. Malcolm's dope. Madam C.J. Walker became America's first female self-made millionaire. What product did her company sell? Was it 1, cosmetics, 2, hair spray, 3, Afro sheen?
I mean, those 3, almost all 3 of them, 10. I'm a guy, man. That's all cosmetics. You ask me. Oh boy, I'm gonna say. I knew I should know. I'm gonna say cosmetics.
There you go. You got it, bro.
All right, damn.
Go with your gut.
I ain't gonna lose my black card yet. I might be from Hawaii, but I'm still a nigga.
All right, this is a good one. Who was Who was the first African American woman to win 5 Grammy Awards in 1 year? 1, Whitney Houston. 2, Lauryn Hill. 3, Janet Jackson.
Oh, that's easy. That's Whitney. Come on now.
Lauryn Hill.
Well,
Lauryn Hill.
Hey, in my defense, I am mixed race. I am not 100% black.
No, you ain't a nigga.
Wait, I got one. So
Okay, go ahead.
Which comedian which activist turned comedian was from the 60s? He just passed away, I want to say 2019. It's a terrible way to phrase the question. I know, that's terrible. But damn.
Multiple choice. You gotta give multiple choice.
Okay, is it number 1, Red Fox? Number 2, Dick Gregory? Number 3, Richard Pryor? Or number 4, Trevor Noah? This is off top of the head.
Dick Gregory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right, yeah.
2 for 2. You're 50%.
Hey, there you go. And as far as white people are concerned, that means I'm 100%.
Right. Well, Ian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, sincerely.
I had a great time talking to you. Please tune in on our future episodes. Follow us on Instagram at The Stand Up Podcast. I'm your boy, Danny Royce. You can follow me everywhere at I am Danny Royce. Where can we follow you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on my Instagram, which is The Comedian with a period after the D, followed by my name, Ian. And you can also follow me on Twitter as the same The Comedian, but instead of a period, it is an underscore.
There you go.
Yes.
Watch the periods and underscores now.
Yeah, I know, right? It began you like that.
Right. Hey, you can find me on Instagram, life.with.mike.
All right, folks. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time here on Stand Up.
Sweet. Thank you.